Well, last hour I had a chance to talk to Indiana Republican Congressman Mike Pence. I asked him why Washington seems focused on cutting taxes at a time when they like to spend money wildly. They just don't want to show us the tax bill for doing it.
I think if you went out on Main Street of America, I think most Americans would say that during this difficult economy, we shouldn't raise taxes on anybody in the city or on the farm. And the Pence to Mint legislation essentially would take the current tax rates, make them permanent, add real certainty to the economy, and we believe would provide a foundation upon which we could begin to really pursue economic growth in this country again.
And how do you reconcile the spending of the U.S. government using all sorts of credit facilities, the bond market, money printing at the Federal Reserve, whatever it may be, with the advocacy for cutting taxes? Doesn't that disconnect the American people from the fact that their government is spending wildly money that they don't have, while denying the American, while basically not giving the American people the bill, which is an easy way to keep your job?
Well, you know, I actually think that's a pretty fair comment. I mean, in isolation, just focusing on tax policy would be insufficient. As I said at the Detroit Economic Club on Monday, we've got to pursue growth on the basis of sound monetary policy. Let's end all this printing money at the Federal Reserve, known as QE2. I also advocated limiting federal spending to 20% of GDP in the Constitution of the United States. But on the specific issue of tax policy, I just believe, you know, higher taxes aren't going to get anybody hired. And raising taxes on job creators now or 2 years from now is not going to create the kind of certainty that will encourage capital formation and investment and really put people back to work.
However, the actual tax rate for the amount of money the government spends might increase the accountability the American people hold their politicians to.
Well, you know,
in other words, if I'm paying 80%. No, I mean, listen, I'm teasing you. Let's talk a little bit about the job.
That's an argument for a flat tax, though. You know, one of the reasons why I'm for a flat tax is because if you simplified the tax code in a way that every American really knew how much of their money was going into the federal treasury, I think it would enhance the accountability of the federal government, and it's another one of the policies that I promoted. But you know, tax reform, tax relief. Let's at least start by making sure there's no tax increases, which is really what the debate in Washington is about today.
And ultimately, whether you think taxes should be higher or lower, and however you think they ought to be collected, obviously everybody would like to see the economic engine that is this country more active, which ultimately, whether the tax rates are higher or lower, results in larger tax collections, period. As you know, the revelation of the $3.3 trillion going into corporations and financial institutions, as you and I have discussed at great length, that's one thing if that base taxpayer subsidy to those institutions, corporations and banks, is being used to drive investment and lending and innovation in our country. But the really disturbing part is not that we gave them the money, but that after we give them the money is being taken out of our country.
Well, I think it's a very real concern, and I've been following those reports. You know, there was one silver lining in that recent Dodd-Frank bill that required the disclosure of this information from the Fed, and you know, as I think the Wall Street Journal said this morning, trying to find a financial institution in this country that didn't get a bailout one way or another is a lot more difficult than finding one that did. And the idea that some of that money is making its way overseas, or even the idea that now we're getting word from the administration that there may be interest in expanding U.S. taxpayer support for the European Stabilization Fund, it's got to be deeply troubling to millions of Americans. We've got to get back to what we know works. What you know from your long career in the financial industry works, and that is, you know, you start out with sound monetary policy, get away from all this printing money. You sound out with a coherent pro-growth tax system. You go to expanded trade and regulatory common sense. And I think you're pretty far down the road to really getting the economy growing again.
And the ultimate measure of whether anybody is achieving that, of course, is unemployment, which continues to persist. We get the jobs number on Friday. Real unemployment in this country at 17%, the U6 number. do you feel that your role as a leader in the Republican Party right now is focused on solving the unemployment problem, whether it's through the lens of the tax debate or anything else? Do you feel that the eye on the ball, if you will, is the unemployment ball, even if there are other issues that affect it?
Well, I will tell you that I believe that the rising Republican majority has its eye on the ball. That for the next 2 years you will see Republicans in the Congress focus on getting federal spending under control and putting America back to work and creating jobs. But I got to tell you, this lame duck session that's all over the map. I know the Senate is debating international treaties in the start, and we're doing military personnel policy, and they're even talking about raising taxes today. You don't feel like this increasingly lame duck session is really focused on where the American people are focused, and that is, for heaven's sakes, what can we do to get this economy growing again and put Americans back to work?
All right. We thank Congressman Pence for his time today. I want to turn to our panel. Jonathan